Link's our hero, and Pac just can't be beat. The Maggie's back!
Hello everyone, and welcome to Theoretical, Hypothetical, Sequel, Prequel, the show where I describe a theoretical and hypothetical sequel/prequel to a game. Today we're talking about The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and it's a prequel, The Legend of Zelda Before the Wild. So this theoretical takes place in the same world as Breath of the Wild, but before the calamity strikes. All the ruins we see in Breath of the Wild will be full of life, and most importantly, they're not ruins. The game's story begins with Link doing your typical Link stuff, he wrangles animals for far too long, and somehow or another falls into being a knight of the kingdom. After some stuff happens, he becomes Zelda's personal guard. This whole section is just the introduction to the game, tutorial stuff, and once Link is Zelda's guard, the two of them can ride around and explore the map we know from Breath of the Wild, but of course it won't be weathered by a calamity situation. Like many other Zelda games, the towns will be full of people and little quests to do. The game is using the same engine as Breath of the Wild, so you can have cooking quests, collecting all the bugs or plants, or whatever you want, really. Notably, while riding around with Zelda, there will be some light conversation important to some character building, and also the memories from Breath of the Wild would be findable, but, they're happening in real time now. But these are side quests, and they're in the details, and I want to focus more on the overarching game mechanics and story rather than the nitty-gritty. Just assume that there's a lot of little side things to do, like in Breath of the Wild. While exploring, the player can switch between Link and Zelda to solve puzzles and shrines or the overworld. Of course,
in The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Zelda is more into research than fighting,
so she may need to be protected. But in this case, she is the one with the Sheikah Slate, so Zelda and Link need to work together to solve puzzles. You could switch to Zelda and tell her to magnesis a block back and forth, switch to Link and ride it. Have her stop an object from afar for Link to avoid, or freeze something for Link to climb on. The possibilities for puzzles and combat are absolutely insane. Of course, with the power of the Sheikah Slate, Zelda's not useless in combat by any means. She can drop things on enemies and deal plenty of damage. This would create a clear difference in the two characters. Link slashes at enemies, he's a strict combat guy, and Zelda has to thoughtfully outplay her opponents if she ever finds herself without her guard. So once Link is an official knight and all that, and the calamity is established as imminent, Link and Zelda need to find the four champions. Urbosa from Gerudo Town, Revali from Rito Village, Mipha from the Zora Domain, and Daruk from Death Mountain. Although, of course, they don't know yet that these are the four champions. For each of these locations, there will be some preamble before the meat of the recruitment takes place. Gerudo Town, for example, Link is stopped at the door because only females are allowed to enter Gerudo Town, so you have to explore the town and talk to people as Zelda. For a puzzle, you could have, there's a switch on a magnesis block. The switch has to be hit with an arrow. Zelda doesn't have a bow. So, Zelda can lift the magnesis block above the city wall, and then Link, from outside the city, could shoot it with his bow. This is a very weird, but pretty cool puzzle that has potential when you have two characters who do different stuff. Once certain rumors have been heard about Urbosa, you try to find her, complete with a little quest to do so, and then you begin trying to recruit her. So, we transition into playing as Urbosa and Zelda. Urbosa and all the other champions will have their own dungeon-esque section of the game with Zelda. This doesn't need to be a strict, dungeon, walk into a catacomb, but it will play like a traditional dungeon. So, after you recruit Urbosa, you go on to recruit the other three champions in a similar fashion. So of course, each of the champions will have their own traits for combat and puzzle solving while you're playing as them. Urbosa could have a hook shot and use lightning to activate things. Revali could have a high jump like Revali's Gale and of course a bow. Daruk could do rolls on ramps and throw the other characters to, ledges. Mipha could swim up waterfalls and dive deep underwater to find new paths. By combining the unique traits of these characters and the Sheikah Slate's traits and splitting it into two characters, the puzzles and level design can flourish if done correctly. Here are some simple puzzle examples. There could be a situation where Mipha swimming up a waterfall leads to some dangerous spikes, so Zelda freezes a block at the top of the waterfall so that Mipha bumps her head on the much safer solid block of ice instead of the spikes. Urbosa could hookshot to objects that Zelda holds up with magnesis, or stops in time. Revali can high jump to the objects Zelda's holding up so that he can have new platforms. Daruk could toss Zelda on a ledge that she needs to get to and then roll up himself. And that's just some of the new mechanics interacting. In Breath of the Wild, there are tons of other interesting mechanics to work with to make really interesting puzzles with this set of mechanics. So once you've recruited the four champions, you return to the king and the ceremony happens. Now that all the characters have been playable and recruited, a final dungeon is in order. It can really be about anything. We could have it be everyone going to the Korok Forest to get the Master Sword for Link, or everyone getting a cup of coffee for all I care, but a dungeon where you solve puzzles and combat situations with all 6 characters is in order. Also remember that these characters are talking and bonding during these situations. You gotta get those little story nuggets in there. But anyway, here's a puzzle that uses all 6 characters as an example. So, simple example, everyone is down here and needs to get up here. So Mipha can climb a waterfall up, and up there is a block to push down. Zelda can magnetize this block, so she magnetizes it up to the top. But before doing that, Link clings on, Rivali high jumps on top of it. So both of them are now up. Once it's up there, Urbosa can hookshot to it to get up herself. So now we have 4 of the 6 characters up there. So now Zelda freezes the block in time, Daruk tosses her on top of it, beats the crap out of it, and then uses a little ramp to roll on top of it himself. The block launches up to the top, and now all 6 characters have successfully gotten to the top. We only had a few different pieces of this puzzle. We only had a waterfall, a block, and a little ramp. But we managed to have an interesting puzzle where all 6 characters got to show their own traits in a very interesting way. So now that we have great puzzle mechanics to play with and fun combat stuff to toy with, we have a game on our hands. The story is also pretty simple. We kind of know it because of Breath of the Wild. Calamity's coming, you need to recruit the champions. But what about the ending of the game? Well, because of Breath of the Wild, we know that the Calamity will happen. So we get a final battle against Calamity Ganon, with all the characters working together in the battle. Then after he proves to be too powerful, the 4 champions retreat to their divine beasts. Link and Zelda stay to stall for time, and here is the final phase of Calamity Ganon. It's impossible to even hurt him at this point, so Zelda and Link simply have to work together to survive. When the fight is nearing a conclusion, the champions phone in and say they're in their divine beasts, and Link gets hit with a powerful attack. It's worth noting that this is all gameplay. Link getting knocked out is scripted, but it isn't a cutscene. The player will feel the hit. The player then has to switch to Zelda, because it's their only option, to get him out of the castle and save him. She puts him on Epona, and they ride to the Shrine of Resurrection. The champions and their beasts hit Ganon for enough time for Zelda to get out, and then Zelda has to ride with Link knocked out through the Calamity. The world we get to know in this game, crumbling into the world we see in Breath of the Wild. Zelda lays Link down in the shrine, puts the Sheikah Slate in its place, and drags the Master Sword out of the shrine. The doors close, and as they do, we see Zelda looking at the blade, worrying that she may have to learn to use it. That is The Legend of Zelda Before the Wild.